You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc., and also analyze the Welsh language off camera. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who puts on a surfer accent anytime I go hang out with long-haired people like Karen, brah.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who conveniently remember I can drive a heavy goods vehicle at opportune moments.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one with two Avengers in my movie.
Yeah. So Kathryn Bigelow has a new movie coming out. I forgot. I wrote down what it's called, but I already forgot. Kieran, what's it called?
A House of Dynamite. So apparently it's in select cinemas, or it's released in select cinemas on October the 3rd. I have seen it nowhere. And it's probably there's about 3 cinemas in London that you can see it in, and maybe 1 in Manchester, and that's about it. Put it this way: mainstream cinemas in Cardiff, which is a capital city of a British country, doesn't have it. So this is obviously how we're treating Oscar winners now, which is insane.
It's not coming to my area until the 24th. So
yeah,
I've got
but it's streaming for streaming debut globally on Netflix on October 24th apparently. So it is coming out on streaming / cinemas in the month at some point at some time, depending on when you get it, where you are, how you get it.
As soon as I can actually see it on. As soon as I can see it on big screens the same day it comes on Netflix, so that's really helpful.
Yeah, so guess what? Nobody's going to see it on the big screen because it's almost like they're trying to sabotage it. This is a thing, because we're not talking about this movie, that goes on in her career, because K-19, the Widowmaker, which it was like $90 million. It got Harrison Ford in it, got Liam Neeson in it, big A-list kind of cast. And they decided to release it in the summer of 2002, which at the very least, there was a Men in Black movie coming out at that time, and Spider-Man was at that time as well. So it's almost like they just tried to kill it off. It's insane.
I cannot find any showings near me, but I do have 3 different showings for the second Wicked movie that is out in over a month.
Yeah.
So
this is what happens. Yeah, we have an Oscar-winning director with a new movie. She hasn't done a movie in like 8 years. Are we going to show it anywhere that people can actually see it? No. Why? Because Netflix, and Netflix doesn't actually want to put films out in cinemas. What they'll have done, because you have to have now for streaming services, you have to have your film out in like a certain amount of cinemas for a certain amount of time in order to qualify for like Oscars and stuff like that. So this is what this will be. They had no intention of actually putting it in cinemas or making any money from it. They're doing it there to qualify it for award season and then shove it straight onto streaming.
It was exactly the same a few weeks ago with Highest to Lowest. They're not going to let a Spike Lee film passing by without getting a potential kind of awards nominations, which is the only reason they released for a few days in cinemas.
They did it with something else a year or 2 ago, where they put it out in cinemas for like a week and then pulled it. I can't remember what it was.
That's what Netflix does with its Oscar potential stuff, is they put it in for the minimum amount of time required. But since the Paramount decision,
they're doing it with Del Toro's Frankenstein as well.
Since the Paramount decision has been struck down, why doesn't Netflix just buy out a theater chain and force people to go to that theater to watch their movies and TV shows? Like, I get that their goal is to maximize streaming subscriptions, but why not do both? Like, I don't know.
Didn't Daniel Craig that asked them this with Knives Out? Yeah. And they just go, that's not our business model. And he goes, your business model effing sucks.
The same conversation comes up every time with a new Knives Out film. So the Glass Onion, we come out of the pandemic, we're desperate to see stuff on the big screen, and basically Netflix just said, no, we want stuff for our service. But they kind of did some stats, and I think basically Netflix were leaving quite a lot of money on the table just by not having the big screen option. A lot of people were saying they would.
I think Disney have worked that out as well with stuff like Lilo and Stitch and Moana 2 and stuff like that going out, and they've gone, actually we're making like 800, 900 million like
Yeah,
takings.
that
And
is,
again, this is before all the merchandise and stuff. It's
yeah,
like, and they won't get all of that profit, but it's going to be at least sort of 400 mil.
yeah. Disney
Yeah.
seem to have been one of the studios that have actually learned their lesson. They're leaving their films in cinemas a lot longer before they're going to Disney Plus now. So
I don't know what
just
the
good
costs.
thing.
I don't know what the costs are to operate a theater, but like the way I think of it is you're already charging people for a Netflix subscription. But what if you can get them into a theater to watch like the last season of You, and they pay $50 and they sit and they binge watch every episode in a theater? Like then you're getting extra money on top of the money they're already spending. Like
The question is, will the theatre chains actually buy to show it? Because if they go, oh, it's going to go straight
you
onto
buy
streaming.
out a theater chain, and because Paramount's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what you have to do. I was going to say that one of the reasons you wouldn't do it is if you know that a film's only going to be out in cinemas for 2 weeks before it goes on to streaming services. As perhaps an independent cinema, you'd go, do I buy this film? You look at it and go, it's only out in 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, it's going to go on to streaming. You go, nobody's going to go to the cinema to see it, or not enough to like the ticket prices be worth buying it, because it's going to go on to streaming in like 2 weeks time. Therefore 3 people will turn up to see it, and it costs me, I don't know, like a couple of £100, at least in the UK, just to get the rights to show it, and you're not going to get that money back. They're not going to pick it up. So like it's a weird thing of having to play the numbers of who do I think will get into it. This is why I said when I worked at the small cinema in a small town, sort of just after kind of COVID, sort of summer 2021, we were essentially saved by Peter Rabbit 2. All the other films, absolutely nothing. Like occasionally, like you'd get something where you get like 40, 50 people in for a showing. Peter Rabbit 2 on quiet days, like it kept that place running. For months longer than it should have been, because it just kept, all the kids kept going to see it, so we just kept playing it.
Classic Hollywood. None of it was organic. What happened was the biggest production companies just bought out the theaters, and they realized, oh, this is where all the money really comes in. So I'm sure things have changed at least a little bit now, but like you can get away with charging such absurd amounts for like premium content in theaters, like the latest Taylor Swift series of YouTube videos movie is just like $15 for one ticket, non-refundable, and that's a scam, like, if we're being honest.
And as I've said before, the ticket prices do not make the money. Like cinemas make almost nothing off the money. I mean, if in the UK,
that's because of the profit structure to all go back to the production studio.
Yeah, I would say if it's a £10 ticket, let's say that was like 12, 13. How much are your tickets, Jacob, in the US?
It depends, but if you're just buying like straight up a ticket on a Friday night, I think it's $12 to $15 for a single ticket.
That sounds about right. So let's say it's $12. Probably maybe $1.50, $2 will be made by the cinema. Like they are not making money off that. What they're making money off is the popcorn. And I went through a very long time of not buying popcorn. Now, if I'm going to see something that I'm not reviewing, 9 times out of 10, I will actually buy the popcorn. After having worked at cinema, know that's where the money comes in. I will do that purely not because I even want it, and I know it's extortionate, but I know they don't make the money any other way. It's the concessions. That's how they can do it.
I mean, when I book my tickets on an app, the first thing you do after you've selected your tickets and like you go for its payment, the final thing you see for that is they're trying to upsell you with like the snacks as well. It's like, do you want to add this to your order? And it's always like, please add this to your order.
Pre-order it.
Money otherwise.
No waiting.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the tragic downfall of what you're not going to see Kathryn Bigelow's new film on a big screen, which is insane.
Because Kathryn Bigelow's, entire body of work is movies you need to see on the big screen. Like, I feel like if I had seen Hurt Locker on a big screen for the first time instead of my pretty big TV, I would have been more impressed by it.
Yeah, I mean, like, all of her movies are kind of big, in-your-face sort of even her. I mean, I say big in your face. Weight of Water or whatever it is from the year 2000. Put it this way, I ranked all her movies, and I can't remember that movie at all. I can't remember. Yeah, it is The Weight of Water from the year 2000. Don't say it's absolutely pointless. I can remember absolutely nothing about it. Even the title, I can't remember. Apparently, she adapted it because part of it spoke to part of her kind of family heritage, kind of that sort of thing. But even like The Loveless, her kind of debut when she was co-director with somebody else, I can't remember who, Monty Montgomery, with an early Willem Dafoe. It's like a slow-paced, very low-budget sort of biker movie.
Yeah.
And there are some scenes in there of kind of big action, you know. And then you go to Near Dark, which we'll be talking about, a violent movie. Blue Steel, is it Blue Steel, Cold Steel? I can't remember. Where
Blue Steel,
yeah.
another violent movie.
With Jamie Lee Curtis as a cop. Point Break, which has some violent chases and car scenes. Strange Days has some very violent. There's riots in there. You know, Weight of Water. Ignore it. To be perfectly honest, don't know why she made it. K-19, The Widowmaker. High octane thrills in a nuclear submarine. Hurt Locker, Iraq War movie. Zero Dark 30, hunting down Bin Laden. And Detroit is essentially race riots. Very tense, very uncomfortable watching.
She should do kind of big, muscular, high impacts kind of stories, doesn't she? Really, again, all designed for the big screen, you know.
And this is what Kathryn Bigelow's sort of niche is, perhaps, in the study of like directors. She was one of the first women working in the masculine quote genre of action, and that's where she made her bones. And that's what a lot of the scholarship around her is about.
And before this, you both sent a couple of clips from interviews, didn't you? And just saying, you know, and it comes down to why are you making these kind of movies? Basically, what, a woman doing this? You know, the women, the boys' club. What's going on here?
So there's a book of interviews that came out in 2013 called Kathryn Bigelow Interviews, collected by Peter Keogh. I think that's how you pronounce the name, Keough. Yeah,
sure.
Koch. Could be whatever it is. And he collects a load of interviews and goes, possibly, and he goes through them. So it goes to 2013. So it includes Zero Dark 30 at the end, but it hasn't got Detroit, and obviously there's a new one coming out, and points out a couple of things from there. So, for example, interviewing for the Chicago Tribune in 1987, Marcia Frelke Colburn asked, "What's a nice woman like Bigelow doing making erotic vampire movies?" You know, and 4 years later, Mark Salisbury wrote in The Guardian, which I normally quite like. You know, obviously Peter Bradshaw's kind of haunt, but this is not great. 4 years later, so this will have been 91, and says, "Why does she make the kind of movie she makes?" You know, so it's literally all about why the hell is a woman making action movies, you know, and you see quite a lot of the interviews, because I've read sort of 7 or 8 of them, skimmed them before this. A lot of the time, kind of, she's going, there's no kind of, there may be a slight underpinning of kind of a political thing. So, for example, in Blue Steel, where it's Jamie Lee Curtis as a cop, and she's like, we wanted to do one because it hadn't been done before. But then she kind of goes off to say sort of the rest of the plot, like, it's a normal action movie. We just wanted it to center around a female because that was the relevant part. It's not like the entire thing was around the sexism of it. You know, we just wanted to make an action movie with a female as kind of in the lead. You know, and she's always kind of towing the line between this. And it's interesting, as is pointed out in the introduction to this collection of interviews, that if you watch her acceptance speech for winning for Hurt Locker, despite the fact that the build-up for it, and it's Barbra Streisand giving the award out, and it's kind of, she goes there and says, you know, for the first time, a woman might win Best Director, you know, before she reads them all out, and then she opens it up going, well, it seems the time has come. Kathryn Bigelow wins. When Kathryn Bigelow goes up, bearing in mind this has been built up as a monumental kind of occasion, and it is. This is, I think, the 82nd Academy Awards, and for the first time, a female has won for Best Director. Kathryn Bigelow makes no mention of it. She just says it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I'm so thankful for absolutely everything. She makes no mention of the fact that it is a momentous moment for for women in film.
Yeah.
It just is a thing. So, and the introduction kind of says maybe it's just because for the last sort of like 30 odd years she's been so bored of batting away the questions of what the hell is a woman doing.
But also, it's like an immense achievement for anyone who's been steadily working away in the industry for 25 years, and they finally get that, very prestigious prize.
Yeah.
And she also. Sorry.
I find it interesting that they got Streisand to give her the awards. It's like because they tend to kind of try and match like the awards to like the presenters, don't they? Kind of someone with connection to the industry. I know obviously Streisand's directed in the past and everything, and it seems like a moment. But you think that you get someone like, I don't know, someone who's probably influenced Bigelow, like say Ridley Scott or something like that. Who she does remind me of in terms of her style. She's like the modern day version of someone like Ridley Scott. Both very into their genres and kind of high impact, stylish, visual stylish kind of filmmaking.
Well,
big scale and everything.
You've also got the fact that she obviously for sort of 3 or 4 years was married to James Cameron. And in this collection of images, there is actually a discussion between her and James Cameron. It's quite funny because they keep saying the last 2 films, like they come out within about a month of each other. And it's normally Bigelow's first, so James Cameron has to live it twice. But in that same year, which she wins, as they mentioned, there was essentially there's 10 films now for the first time ever, but there were kind of 2 forerunners, Hurt Locker and Avatar. Which is amazing, and both got nominated for director. And like James Cameron is like the first to stand up and applaud her. He's sitting just behind her. So they've obviously got a fairly decent working relationship, even after
they're good colleagues.
Yes, it's just so interesting because obviously he's
and you often get that. I mean, there's been like speculation over the years, but as far as I can tell, the relationship ended fine. They there's professional respect there, and they've worked together real well over the years. It just obviously didn't work out in their private life. Some people just aren't made to live together, are they? Even if they get along well.
Going back to her perspective on gender, she has an interview with Time magazine from 2015. So after the book Kieran's discussing. And Zero Dark 30 is the movie they're sort of focusing on. She says, "I've always firmly believed every director should be judged solely by their work, not by their work based on their gender. Hollywood is supposedly a community of forward-thinking and progressive people, yet this horrific situation for women directors persists. Gender discrimination stigmatizes our entire industry, and change is essential. Gender-neutral hiring is essential." And I think that really speaks to, she has an idealist desire for like, it would be nice if I wasn't framed as the most successful female director ever. However, here are the realities that are faced. And I think looking back on her, origins too, I found a piece about her from Columbia, which is where she got her MFA. And it's about it starts with the Hurt Locker because that's what's going on in the moment, and then it goes into like her background and body of work and stuff. And it's so interesting to see how she really is of that, like, we talk about the people in the 60s getting educated in film for the first time. Well, she's kind of coming in at the tail end of that, of the first generation, but she's right there in the thick of like intellectualizing film. And her master's thesis short film was 2 semiotic theorists at Columbia narrating 2 guys beating each other for 20 minutes.
I will admit I have yet to see the setup. I will find it at some point and seek it out. But interestingly enough, before even that, she was a painter. That's what she trained as.
Abstract painter.
That's what she trained in. That's what she did, and she came to film a bit later, which is why she's got a lot of the theory kind of, and it was more abstract initially to start with. Hilariously enough, there's a quote here that she's kind of so in this introduction for this book as well. As she recalled for Carrie Rickey in the Philadelphia Inquirer in 2009, she, along with Julian Schnabel, painter Julian Schnabel, crashed in the loft of performance artist Vito Aconci. Doing odd jobs, she rehabbed an apartment with one of America's up-and-coming composers. And she goes, "I did the drywall," she remembered. "Philip Glass did the plumbing." It's like one of those stories. You know the story that Robert Englund went to try out for Han Solo, and then went back to his mate and went, you should try out for this other part of this film they're going, and it was flipping Mark Hamill because they were best mates. Hamill's crashing on his couch. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, you just have these moments of just like they were there together somehow. You know,
Kieran, you found, or you have the book of interviews. This piece stops after her 90s films because it's from 1998, but it's called From the Levelist to Point Break, Kathryn Bigelow's Trajectory in Action. It's by Christina Lane, and it's in Cinema Journal from summer 1998, volume 37, number 4. And pretty much what she outlines, so at least through the 90s, and I would need to go back and watch The Hurt Locker and stuff to see how this holds up. I'm assuming it does. Sort of what her cinema is about academically is sort of deconstructing the ideology of gender, specifically masculinity within action. And it is something that she's consciously doing, and that comes from her interest in semiotics and psychology. And Kieran, I sent you that quote about Hurt Locker being a psychological thriller. I'm sure in her mind it was, to an extent, because it's about the psyche of these people. And that's what she's most interested in all of her action movies, which, in my opinion, anytime something is character-based, it's based on, like, exploring the mindsets and ideologies of people. You know, that's where film sort of gets elevated beyond just, oh, cool surfer action movie.
elevated.
Sick, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when she's talking about Hurt Locker, and we'll get to Hurt Locker eventually, she says essentially kind of, bearing in mind the writer had been somebody who'd actually been out there kind of doing loads of research for articles that she then got in touch with, and they then made the film out of that. When he was over there, because people have gone, is it a political film and that kind of thing? And he goes, to be honest, when they're out there, I can't remember what the exact quote is. I'll find it at some point when we talk about Hurt Locker. She essentially says, you know, when people are out there, my guy, who name I can't remember, who wrote Hurt Locker, it says essentially the bomb disposal guys and the soldiers on the ground aren't talking about the politics of it. They're talking about, you know, are they going to die today, and what's your favorite beer? You know, that's the kind of thing they're talking about.
You got a woman back home. Classic war movie dialogue.
You know, it's so she was trying to keep that apolitical. It's and focus on the characters rather than the politics of it all. Because she's like, look, we've got thrilling situations here. Why do I need to talk about anything else? You know, they're on the ground like 4 or 5 times a day, you know, with their inches away from something that's going to blow a hole and a blast radius 300 meters wide. You know, like. Yeah. I can get into the psyche of the people that have to do this. I don't need the rest of the war. Obviously, this will be completely overdone by the next film after it, which is completely the politics of that exact same war.
Kieran, imagine if, like, British soldiers were sitting around during the American Revolution, or whatever y'all call it, and were like, oh, man, what do you think about these colonists separating from the empire? Like... It's silly to consider that just sort of grunt soldiers would be discussing the higher-minded, you know, not that they can't or don't have the capability, but, like, I don't know. I feel like that's not a common topic.
Yeah, that's kind of what she likes to do. She tries to keep things apolitical, or try and I think there's another interesting quote again from this introduction. So she's talking to Anna Maria Bahiana, I apologize for butchering the name, in Cinema Papers in 1992, talking about I love to see action films by George Miller, Sam Peckinpah, Scorsese, James Cameron, Walter Hill. And then she eventually goes in the Los Angeles Times in 2009, says, I love B movies. They're pure expression like the works of Jackson Pollock or Willem de Kooning. There is a wildly chaotic rawness to them, my favorite bit, and they're not self-important. So it's the fact that she's apparently when she got into film she'd kind of go see Werner Fassbinder and then a Bruce Lee kung fu movie just like straight one after each other. She's like, I'll watch anything. I don't care about the high artiness of it. And she kind of went into film because it was less self-important than painting and art and all this abstract stuff, and she could get into to stuff that wasn't important. It was pure expression that you could get across to people. So I
bet
think
she
that's what she
loves
tries
Fast
to
and
bring
the
to a film.
Furious.
I don't know. Christopher Nolan does. So like he in interviews literally will go, no, that's number 5. This happens in 6. That's 4. And literally reels them off. It's hilarious.
One battle after another is her favorite Paul Thomas Anderson. She's like, finally, there's one I can like.
Yeah.
I guess, Sam, do we finally want to talk about Near Dark, which I was forced to watch in terrible aspect ratio that cut off heads?
Yeah. That's a shame because it's worth seeing a decent print of it. I'd say, if that's your experience for this time around, it's
so sorry.
Great, yeah, definitely.
You watched it nearly in the dark. Sorry.
Yeah, it was like watching an episode of Supernatural without 2/3 of the screen, basically.
Now, see, I've got a nice Blu-ray of it, and can you tell this Blu-ray was released after Twilight with what they've done with the artwork?
Oh God, that's a disgusting cover. Like. Burn it right
I love
now.
that.
That's even more like sentimental and like erotic than Point Break, and you can see in those posters with Swayze
and there's no doubt in my mind that they did that artwork purely because they've released this Blu-ray after Twilight came out. Because I've seen all the original poster art, and there's nothing even close to that. So.
It's it's
a vampire like getting shot with like bolts of light coming out of him. It's ridiculous.
It's an interesting visual take on the story too.
Nothing to do with the story.
Yeah, so Near Dark, 1987 vampire film, or vampire western, I suppose you could call it, really. Yeah. It's Kathryn Bigelow's second film and first as solo director, as Kieran's already mentioned. And it's about a guy called Caleb who falls for vampire May, who turns him and then brings him home to her family of bloodsuckers who go out hunting it each night. And it's basically their adventures, a series of few nights, moving from location to location, and him kind of wrestling with like the morality of the thing, and while his dad and his younger sister are looking for him because he's just gone missing after all this time, essentially.
Can we just point out how Kathryn Bigelow has seemingly, in pretty much every film, I'll double check the cast of Weight of Water, but pretty much every film got like massive name actors, because even in this it's like, oh, it's your first solo film, who you got in it? You've got Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen, if nobody else. Like, how the hell have you managed this?
Well, James Cameron suggested to her that she just use his ready-made ensemble cast from Aliens. So just call all these guys up, I'm sure some of them will do it, and she got 4 of them, so it's not bad. So yes, apparently she was interested in doing when she co-wrote the script. They were interested in doing like a western was their first idea apparently, but basically the studio at the time said, "Yeah, you need something else." So horror's popular at the moment. Why don't you change your script to include the horror elements? It's all right. We'll do vampires then. So yeah, they turned kind of this weird western romance into a vampire western romance essentially.
But some of the characters, did live in the Old West, so at least one of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great line from Lance Henriksen, isn't it? Yeah. How old are you? Let's put it this way: I fought for the South.
Yeah. I'm trying to find a quote. I did see a quote where she explains how they came up with it. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah.
One of the actors of the cast list is named Neath Hunter, which, I mean, that sounds like some sort of supernatural being that somebody hunts. So.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of tones it like from the beginning. So I mean, it sort of starts a bit on the nose. It opens up with a shot of a mosquito feasting on an arm, and I was like, which I completely forgotten about. So I saw this a few years ago. I thought, really, that's a bit much, but okay, let's go with it. and then we get nice kind of lots of nice magic hour shots in this. I mean, it's kind of handy that it's a vampire film because lots of shots of the sun rising, the sun setting, so she gets some nice, some nice lighting in on this, just as the vampires are running around causing chaos. So Adrian Pazdas, the lead, is Caleb, and to me, he's always going to be the guy from Heroes, the the flying politician from Heroes. I think this was probably like one of the first films I've seen him, or one of the first films I've seen of him when he was quite young. It's kind of weird. I was like, hey, I remember you.
In about 20 years' time.
Well, and see, y'all said, "Oh, stacked cast," and I was like, "I have heard of Bill Paxton," and that is
You've heard of Lance Henriksen.
I probably. I recognize none of
Lance
them.
Henriksen and Jeanette Goldstein, so of Aliens. So you got God, what's Bill Paxton's character called in Aliens again?
I can't remember.
Hudson.
And he's in Independence Day, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes. So we've got Hudson, Bishop, and Vasquez from Aliens. Yeah. So.
And just to give Jacob the Lance Henriksen rundown of some of his filmography: Dog Day Afternoon, Network, Close Encounters, some weird stuff like Damien 2, Omen 2, and Piranha 2. But then he's also in Terminator. He's in Aliens, Pumpkinhead, which we have done. He's the dad in Pumpkinhead. He's in Alien 3 as Bishop's creator. He ends up in some weird things like the Super Mario Brothers movie in '93 as a cameo. That's not even, ignore that part.
I know him from that, certainly.
He's in Scream 3 as John Milton. So he's the director. Sorry, the studio head even in Scream 3.
I did not realize Bill Paxton was from my neck of the woods. So that's good to now know.
I'd like to point out he is also in one of the very first films we did, Jacob. He has a cameo appearance in Jennifer's Body.
Nice.
So
him.
he's one of the kind of genre darlings. I think it's fairly fair to say.
Nice.
Yeah. As well as Stat Cast, you get a really good soundtrack in this from Tangerine Dream, who I only know for three scores, and that's Freakin' Sorcerer, Michael Mann's Thief, and this basically very kind of I don't know, kind of bassy, kind of industrial electronic kind of sound, but kind of fits the atmosphere of this quite well. So after Caleb's kind of turns, that's when he picks up. Starts feeling well, and he basically collapses in the field outside his family's home. I think it's picked up by a blacked out Winnebago, which is a great transport, I think, for a vampire gang. Just to tear across the landscape. I mean, there's so many scenes of this where like they're driving somewhere and they're about to be caught out by the sunlight, so they're trying to blacking out the windows. You're putting foil up against the glass or spray painting, like panels, see through panels and stuff. I mean, it's interesting that she not ignores a lot of vampire mythology, but the sunlight is still a big thing here.
That was apparently a deliberate choice. Like she reread Dracula, so the blood transfusion stuff near the end is taken from Dracula, and apparently she read some of Anne Rice's vampire stuff. But aside from that, tried to literally take them out of vampires, because the word vampire is never mentioned in the film.
No.
I also see here that there were 2 films that are similar to this. One of which is Billy the Kid versus Dracula, which I now need to see.
Oh, I need to see that now, yes.
That sounds amazing.
Yep. Yeah. And what's the other one?
Curse of the Undead. That sounds boring.
Yeah. I will also say, obviously, this came out in the same year as Lost Boys as well.
Yeah, as Lost Boys, yeah. And this is so much better than Lost Boys. I'm not a fan of Lost Boys.
I'm not a Lost Boys person either. Like, I understand why it was okay for. I think you had to be about 13-year-old girl to get it.
Yeah, Kiefer Sutherland's good. So Kiefer Sutherland's good, and there's that kind of unintentional hilarious bit with the shirtless saxophonist on the beach.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't got the specific yes, this was. But if you think of Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, where it literally is kind of steam shining
The-
vampires in a
yeah.
Winnebago
The gang
traveling
of
around
energy
hunting people.
vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine Stephen King's found this film and possibly took influence from it.
And one of
Which
the
is why,
first characters in that film that you meet of it, other than Rose of the Hat, is Snakebite Andy, who is a girl with short, kind of blondish hair. And I'm
that's true.
going,
Yeah, she does.
there is
She
a
does look a
connection
bit like May. Yeah, definitely.
here.
I mean, the kind of the Twilight comparison here. I mean, essentially, it's like gender flipped Twilight, isn't it? Being a lot darker, So it's the guy who's the human, falls to vampire, and I mean, but I think that's probably coincidence because I can't imagine Stephanie Meyer's seen this, and if she hears,
Or
if
would have
she
cared.
has, probably wouldn't take influence from it. It's probably not her kind of thing.
No.
That would be funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's very violent, very sexy, quite disturbing in a lot of scenes. I mean, the standout scene everyone always goes on about is the bar scene. The gang walk into a bar and basically take over and start, basically showing off and torturing its patrons. And Bill Paxton, I mean, this is one of his great roles, I think. It's just so nice to see him just go completely off the handle, just play completely deranged. Because normally he's the funny friend or the throwaway wisecracking guy, but here he's properly sinister, which is kind of cool to see.
I think there's also a couple of shots, especially the kind of silhouettes and stuff. There's one where you kind of see the mist kind of going over in the moonlight and their silhouettes moving and stuff like that. Obviously speaks to her initial background as a painter, obviously painting these kind of abstract images and stuff like that. And although there's not as much in kind of later films, there's still obviously an artist, a very visual flair to a lot of her stuff later on.
Yeah. And the most obvious scene that they were kind of stats out as just a pure Western is kind of there's a shootout like midway through, where they're hiding out in it's like a motel, surrounded by cops, and you're shooting through the windows. Obviously, it's daylight, so they're taking shelter inside and trying to peek through the curtains, and shoot out while cops are shooting in, and like these shafts of light coming through the the wood of the walls and everything. That's a classic.
And the end where he's on the horse.
Shootout.
With a cowboy hat. Let me quickly grab the quote I was looking for earlier. It's from the same interview with Anna Maria Baiana from Cinema Papers, January 1992. And Bigelow says, Near Dark started because we wanted to do a Western, but as nobody will finance a Western, we thought, okay, how can we subvert the genre? Let's do a Western, but disguise it in such a way that it gets sold as something else. Then we thought, a vampire Western. And it's now kind of, this is novel at the time, but a vampire Western is kind of part and parcel now. Like we think of, is it Sundown, I think is one. Obviously, John Carpenter's vampires. There's a couple more. I've kind of seen a few manuscripts and turned down quite at least two or three for Western vampire kind of crossovers.
I'd say from Dusk Till Dawn's essentially.
Yes, it is
a Western as well as a vampire comedy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It also
hilariously enough, obviously Tarantino got nominated for Inglourious Bastards the same year that Bigelow won for Hurt Locker, so it's all connected. It's conspiracy.
It also takes place in like the North Texas and Oklahoma area too, which I mean Bonnie and Clyde for sure is there, and but I feel like most westerns that are in Texas take place more in the deserty western part.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still quite a bit of dust in this movie. Let's be fair.
Yeah. I mean, apparently they again talk about like not having faith in this up and coming woman director. The producers told her that if she couldn't handle the job after 5 days, she'd be replaced. So basically, they gave her like a week saying, "We're not sure about you, so we'll give you at least we'll give you like a bit of distance 5 days, but after that, you're gone." And needless to say, after they saw what she'd done after 5 days, they had no doubts anymore. She truly proved herself. Seeing the dailies and how she was working with her cast and just the ridiculous looking shots she was turning in. So
there's an amazing thing. I think it's from it's to Bahiana as well. It might be from the same interview. She might have said it. It had multiple interviews with people. So this is from the introduction. It's quoting one of the interviews. She also says that they've got difficulties when making Near Dark. Apparently, the company that made it lost its distribution deal whilst we were cutting the movie. They sold it to
Yeah.
Dino De Laurentiis, but DEG went bankrupt while it was releasing
Yeah.
the picture, so it happened twice in one film.
I know. I didn't know about the initial one. I knew about DEG going bust, but I didn't know there was another company before that.
Imagine you're losing the distribution deal to your movie twice on
Yeah.
the same picture, like, and it's your debut, you know, and you've got
Yeah,
all this
and you have to
backing.
be like a steady kind of presence, I think, to deal with that, don't you? And just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go on and find some other finances and some other distributors.
Yeah.
I did find myself thinking of the scene towards the end where he's Kelvin gets in the truck, you know, and kind of drives towards Bill Paxton. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Right, Bill Paxton's Severin, isn't he? I knew he had a fancy vampire name, but I can't remember what it was without looking it up. Yes, so yeah, the vampires in this, we've got May, Jesse, Severin, Diamondback, and Homer. Homer is the kid vampire, because I mean,
He's the
again,
one
I
who
wonder
likes
if you like the
donuts.
kid vampire. There are kind of references to like Anne Rice, you know, in this as they're often are with vampire media. You know, the idea of May teaching Caleb how to, you know, he needs to feed, you know, how to do it and everything, and him kind of failing it. Very much reminded me of Louis' early kind of trials and errors at being a vampire in an interview. But yeah, so the scene where he's kind of about to drive down Severin, it did make me think, and Severin's kind of just standing there, kind of egging him on, you know. It did make me think, so, was Christopher Nolan a fan of this film? Was he thinking about this for the Dark Knight?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know kind of what images they've kind of picked out from over the years, kind of, you know, replicate or, you know, have kind of even had like a unconscious influence on their style. But, you know, often it's not nothing, you know, it's kind of interesting. There's like that parallel. I mean, generally, I think it's kind of the heavy lifting is, you know, done with the performances and the way it's lit and shot and everything. It's very atmospheric and punchy and all that. Say the final stretch, the final chase in the daylight kind of is potentially a pretty visually iconic scene, but the effects haven't really aged that well. I didn't notice that last time. The shots of bursting into flames and stuff. I think possibly if it on like I don't know whether it's just a budget thing or not, but you can tell it's not like a stuntman like set myself on fire. It's like it's kind of it's effect that's been layers on after, you know, where it's done a different way. It just doesn't quite work out. But
yeah.
I do like the image of like one vampire running down the road on flames and two others driving in the sunlight, hitting them and then bursting into flames in their car. You know, it's quite cool.
I mean, there's also the fact that this is her kind of not technically her directorial debut, but her solo directorial feature.
Debut, yeah.
And it's been several years since she directed a previous film as well.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, there are a lot of directors that take a couple of films to properly warm up. It's rare that one just comes out of the gate with one film and it's immediately polished. You know, there are loads that take that little.
Yeah, it cost $5 million, and there's quite a lot of like location stuff in this as well. And obviously, I mean, I don't know what the cast would have been paid, you know, but I don't think they've had an abundance of money, would they? They've probably had to pick the battles and kind of what we're going to have to prioritize here.
Yeah.
God, I've just seen that thank God the Platinum Dunes we're gonna remake it in 2008. But thank God that was cancelled.
There is a God after all.
Yeah. I mean, if there's one criticism about this, I'd say all the vampire characters are really kind of vivid and interesting, and you want to know more about them, you know, because they're tantalizing about like their history and kind of their relationship. You know, you'll get snaps of kind of what they've been through and all that. So they're quite interesting enigmas. I will say, I think Caleb is a boring bastard, and he's a really dull lead character. But again, I don't know whether that's down to like the Western thing, you know, having a quite straight, morally kind of down the line kind of guy, you know, to kind of lead it all, you know, literally, you know, as you said, he'd been on the horse, you know, with his hat, with his Stetson on, you know, towards the ends, you know, maybe that's intentional, but
maybe they thought if you make him too interesting, the vampires won't be interesting. You need that contrast. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, literally, the main character, we've got the 3 humans, and we've got Caleb, obviously, becomes vampire, and we've got his family coming after him.
Yeah.
All the others are just basically they're out hunting each night and screwing with humans when they're not killing them. Just just want to scare the Jesus out of them. Apparently, there was an instance during filming where I mean, you've seen all these scenes in this, filmed like railway yards, like all these kind of, train carriages and things like that, just stacked up, and they were filming near like a still working railway, and time after time, during the night, they set up a shot, and then a big train would go by and kind of ruin the take. One night, Bill Paxton, in his full makeup with half his face missing, saw one of the train workers leave a diesel engine and went up to him saying, "Hey man, there's been an accident. If you think I'm bad, wait till you see the other guy."
That reminds me, they were shooting one of the. I might have said this before. One of the Friday the 13th, like 7 or 8 or something like that. And Kane Hodder was there and just walking off to get some space and keep in kind of Jason mode, and saw a policeman just doing his rounds and decided to mess with him. So just saw this and just came up and stood there. The policeman was like, are you part of the shoot? And he just kind of stood there. It's like, the movie they're making, he just kind of stood there as Jason. This guy just absolutely bricked it and got out of there quick. Like, you would, let's be fair.
Yeah. I mean, similarly for Lance Henriksen, doing his kind of getting to the part of Jesse. Apparently, he took to just driving around on his own and picking up hitchhikers and trying to scare them.
Well, hilariously enough, the guy that wrote this, what's his name? Is it Eric Reed or something like that?
Yeah.
Previously, he had done The Hitcher. That was the film we did befole that with Rutger Hauer.
Eric Red. Yeah,
that's the one.
I watched the remake of that for October scary movies, and boy, does it suck.
You watched it for what, like
for fun and profit?
No, not fun. The opposite of fun. Torture.
I mean, the original is a classic. Why would you watch the new version?
Well, not everybody likes old movies, sadly.
Yeah, so that's Henderson just took to driving off into the desert by himself, and if he saw someone walk onside the road, he'd pick them up. Apparently, just really freaks out. This one guy is like a big burly guy, apparently, but he just came out with like some of the lines that Jesse would come out with, just some really veiled kind of sinister kind of phrase and stuff. And this guy, that's Henderson apparently said, you could have put him out, he wouldn't be able to, hold his own in the fight with him. This guy just got really terrified. Just as soon as he got towards like near town, he said, "No, just drop me here," and ran off. So whatever he's doing,
method acting before it was method.
I mean, because that's how he's looking. He's a small, thin guy, but he's, that phrase like, "He's the little ones you got to watch," the ones that kind of. I mean, that was the original concept for Terminator. Apparently, Lance Henriksen was originally going to. Cameron wanted him to play the T-800 in the original Terminator because he thought he wanted someone who would blend in. You wouldn't look twice at, but then he's deceptively strong. But then, the studio kind of got involved and said, no, we want someone who looks more impressive. Get this wrestler in instead. So a bodybuilder, not wrestler.
Yeah. That's obviously James Cameron. I wonder if he might have helped on some other films later on that we'll be discussing. Anyway, let's finish off with Near Dark.
Yeah, I mean, so essentially, so they're all kind of, they stop at another hotel, and Chaos family catches up with them, and they're all threatened, and he's basically got to take the fight to them. He gets cured with a blood transfusion. Again, I'm surprised Vampire Fiction doesn't use the blood transfusion thing as a plot device more often. Really,
the thing with the blood transfusion is, one, I think it's quite an expensive setup, and now that we don't have all of the aristocracy or going to hospitals, and normally it's like, don't take me again in this, don't take me to hospital or I'll die. And that's where the blood transfusion stuff is. Let's be fair, and also because it's such a big thing in Dracula, like. You can get away with it every so often, but occasionally you're just going to go, you just rip that from Dracula.
Yeah. There's a nice inversion of that in the Universal film House of Dracula, which is, I think, the final of their big monster rally films. But the mad scientist in that essentially wants Dracula's blood to become a vampire himself, so he gets tracks of fusion, and the other way it works the other way around and becomes a mad vampire himself. So that's a nice inversion of that. But yeah, so that just make sure Caleb can be human by the end, and then right at the end he can cure May as well. And they essentially get to walk off into the sunset. So
or the sunrise.
All the other vampires have been killed horribly. So yeah, Bill Paxton gets blown up, and all the others get burnt to death. So yeah. I mean, this is I'd say it's a I wouldn't say it's a typical vampire film. Obviously, it's got the Western kind of road movie, gang movie kind of elements to it, and obviously it picks and chooses what elements of vampire mythology it wants to use. But as a kind of a calling card for Bigelow as like a kind of a solo filmmaker, how when she'll use like genre elements, she'll tweak them and pick and choose what she wants. But otherwise, she'll just do her own version of like a really stylish, high impacts, high concept kind of movie. Then this is kind of a pretty good indication of like where she'd be going in the next few years, I think. I still really enjoy it. It's because not everything's aged well. Not all the characters are great, but generally, I think it's pretty good. And caught it before, then it's worth it.
As your solo debut in 1987, as a female filmmaker for a solo debut as well, you couldn't have asked for much better, realistically. And I know people will go like, "Oh, all these filmmakers," but you have to understand the context of what is going on here. You have a female filmmaker doing her solo debut, and it's a vampire western movie with producers that are like, "Oh, we're going to sack you after 5 days because you're a woman, and we don't think you can hack it." Every single card you can possibly find is stacked against her in every way, and to come out with this, which is still regarded as a cult classic nearly 40 years on, you could not ask for a better film. Yes, there are issues with it, but it is still very, very solid, and better than Lost Boys, which gets all the love and attention, and this kind of is almost the sort of forgotten cousin that we go, oh yeah, and Near Dark.
Yeah, I think it's different between being a teen movie and being something very definitely for adults, really, isn't it? There's no kind of doubt about that with this one. Really, that's the audience in mind. It's grisly and dark and dark, and I mean, the tagline on this Blu-ray, don't know if it was on the original, is just pray for daylight. And it's got that kind of that tension of each night, kind of how much damage can they do in a night, before the the sunlight, puts them back in their coffins, for a few hours, which is classic vampire thing. But I do really like the thing about there'd be like an outlaw gang who are vampires, and just causing chaos because they can. It's a nice idea. But good kind of calling card, good setup for what's to come. But on the action stakes, well, there are much bigger things to come for us. So
we've also so we mentioned Blue Steel just in passing, but it's Jamie Lee Curtis action movie. It's a fine film, in that it does its job. It's not amazing, it's not awful, it does what it needs to, and it's seeing her kind of move into a more sort of grounded reality, which is what she'll become known for much later on. Strange Days really is the last sort of, if you want to say, speculative kind of film. Pretty much everything else is very much grounded in reality as much as you can do. And it's interesting.
I say all of her 90s stuff is 90s stuff is kind of heightened, isn't it? It's it's in a recognizable real world, but it's exaggerated to an extent. But as you say, they definitely got kind of delved back a bit as she went on in her career.
And people had pointed out that somewhere, I can't remember, let's see if I can find it, that there was a relationship with so Cold Steel, Blue Steel came out, so this is Hollywood's Macho Woman by Mark Salisbury in 1991 in The Guardian. The same one that I think it's the same one that asked what what does she do making this kind of movie that she makes?
Yeah.
Points out that she says, while Blue Steel, with its gun-toting female protagonist, can lay claim to initiating the whole women with guns trend that peaked this summer with Thelma and Louise and Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. And I go, they would have been in development at the same time. This is not an initiating the entire thing, but she's obviously still in the zeitgeist at the minute.
Also, Alien.
James Cameron is very much coming into it, and also the idea that Terminator 2 is where Linda Hamilton comes into her own. It's like, but she's in the first one, and she does a fair bit of fighting back there, even if it's Carl Reese who's meant to be the main hero, But yeah, Cold Steel is a decent. That's the one. Why am I thinking Cold Steel? I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, God, brain.
Well,
brain
Kieran, it's okay because we're not talking about Cold Steel.
Yeah,
we're talking about.
And then she goes to Point Break, which is, I think, of all the movies, aside from maybe Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, it's the one that most people have seen.
Yeah, Point Break is it's sick. I picked it because I love Point Break. It is if we're talking about Near Dark as a cult classic, Point Break is even more so. Because it's so easy to look at it. Like, there were critics that liked it. Ebert liked it. But it's easy to watch it and just go, oh, that's a dumb action movie. Because it kind of is. Like,
it's a fairly stupid premise, let's be fair.
It's very silly and very focused on, like, subculture, which could be a bit like exploitation filmy, and it's got Gary Busey post motorcycle accident, so he's a little bit going crazy already. But I mean, this goes back to her saying, I like kind of the dumb action movies because they're not pretentious. Like, I like my Bruce Lee kung fu B movies because it's just fun.
I mean, if you're going to believe Hot Fuzz, then it's a love story, isn't it?
It is.
Amazing bit in Point Break.
We'll get into that. One interesting point. So this is the period where she's married to James.
Point?
Yeah, this is the point break in her career where she's married to James Cameron. And something interesting. So that author I mentioned earlier in her piece, she sent something, maybe this, but maybe something else she had written to Bigelow to read over. And she read that what the author had said about James Cameron being a producer on the film. And again, they were married at the time. James Cameron obviously had been very successful at Hollywood up to this point. And Kathryn Bigelow had to correct her framing of the nature of James Cameron's involvement. So quoting the author here, she states that she had asked 20th Century Fox to hire Cameron on Point Break, not the other way around. In elaboration, she writes, for some reason, it would appear that whenever analysts, whether they be journalists or academics, study the careers of men and women in the entertainment business, they assume that any collaborative effort between a man and a woman is somehow more beneficial to the woman rather than the man. Which, I mean, it's easy to do for how big James Cameron was. We've already talked a little bit just in passing about Terminator and Aliens. Like, he's huge at this point in time.
Terminator 2 was the biggest film of all time at this point.
Yeah, I'll get to Terminator 2 later. But yeah, literally anything you think about James Cameron's involvement in Point Break, it's because of Bigelow saying you should involve him because he's a smart guy. He knows action. Yeah. Apparently they did uncredited rewrites on the original script. Because the original script was just kind of and they were like, let's punch this up, let's make it better, smarter, everything, for all of her talk about, oh, they're not pretentious, they just are pure expression. Like, there's more to Point Break than just dumb cool surfer action movie.
I don't think it's a point that kind of they're just dumb action movies. It's the idea that you can elevate it, if you want to use that term, but there still is the DNA of just in your face shootouts action, and that's always going to remain a part of it. It isn't trying to take this beyond a stupid action movie. It's adding something else in, as well as being, in theory, a stupid action movie with gun chases on runways and parachuting and surfing and the lot,
Oh yeah, and barely any female characters that are barely relevant to the story.
Oh yeah, ignore that fact.
But man, what's just so fun about Point Break? It's young Keanu. You know, he's done Bill and Ted at this point. I don't know what else he's done.
Yeah, because he's yet to do Dracula. He's yet to do Speed. Like,
Has he done the? I don't think he's done the Sandra Bullock movie.
Has he done My Own Private
Speed.
Idaho at this point? Has he worked with Gus Van Sant?
Let me just wiki his stuff.
let's
He
find
won't
out.
have done much.
My Own Private Idaho is 91. Is Point Break 91 as well?
Yeah.
91,
So he's
92,
making it
yeah.
at the same time. But you know, Bill and Ted, he's doing.
Yeah.
You know,
He's done
dumb,
Dangerous Liaisons.
He's playing a dumb, like, stoner like character. I don't know if they are stoners, I can't remember, but they're kind of stoners. They talk in the stupid "oh hey bro" voice, which he continues to do in this movie. And it's interesting thinking about him being like John Wick and Neo in the context of, like, Point Break is probably his biggest thing up to this point, or at this point when it's released.
Yeah, when it's released, yeah. I mean, you got Bill and Ted, then just Point Break. Next year he does Dracula.
And with
Speed gets in 94, yeah.
with Point Break, like for Bigelow too, this is a $24 million budget film, from what I could find, which amounts to Google AI checking sources for me. The budget was just above the box office at like 8.4 or 8.6 or something, and the box office was 8.2. So the 24 million or more put into this movie is like a 3x jump from her previous film with Jamie Lee Curtis, which is not Cold Steel, it is Blue Steel.
Blue Steel.
The plot of the movie is really awesome. So former star college quarterback Johnny Utah, played by Keanu Reeves, who's left-handed,
which is his real name apparently.
Yep, it's his real name, and he uses it no matter what. Because in the early '90s, you can't just Google.
Not as James Bond.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. You can't just Google is Johnny Utah in the FBI in 1991. So Johnny Utah's in the FBI, and he's walking with John C. McGinley through the FBI headquarters, and it's very segmented, it's very tight, it's very bland looking, it's very white. And I went back and watched that because the end of the movie just contrasts with that so visually. And I think it has a lot to say about like what world Johnny's inhabiting early on in the film. But yeah, he walks through and he's a rookie at the FBI. He takes the skin off of his chicken. He's all American in every sense. But there's these ex-president robbers. And it's guys putting on rubber masks of presidents, one of which is Ronald Reagan, who was very recently out of office at this point. And they are running around robbing banks, and they only do it in this specific 4-month span. And he gets partnered with old-timer Gary Busey's character, who loves to eat. And they're going to crack this case. And what's interesting is Gary Busey starts off the movie and he's sort of the lazy, I'm just here collecting a paycheck character. But Johnny Utah, he pumps him up. He uses his football, male, social abilities to get him angry and get him thinking. And what they're thinking about is, I think these guys are surfers. And so Keanu needs to go infiltrate the surf culture in, I guess, California. I don't quite yeah, they're in LA. So they need to go undercover. Both of Gary Busey is also undercover as a weird old man who wears beach style shirts around the beach in order to figure out who these robbers are.
Where else would you wear beach style shirts if not at the beach?
I would wear them on this podcast.
Next week.
So and the way he figures it out is he's like, there's this wax, and Johnny Utah's like, but wax can be used for so much, man. Like, waxes, they mustache and they put it in hair and they use it for, and he's like, yeah, but this sex wax stuff, it only has 3 specific uses, and one of them is surfboards. And like his unfurling of his theory of they are surfers is great. And they operate 4 months out of the year because they use all of their stolen funds to travel around and surf. So they have to find them in October, right now, before surf season ends. So it's very apropos we're doing this in October. But boy,
It's all planned.
Poor Johnny Utah. He suffered a knee injury, which forced him to not go to the NFL. Which, it's crazy. He was apparently like the best college quarterback and played at Ohio State, which is they won the national championship last year. They are one of the biggest football schools in the U.S. And like, it's just insane that guy's like, well, I'm going to go work for the FBI, I guess. Not going to like coaching or anything.
Now, do you think he wanted to work for the FBI or the FBI recruited him?
It could have been that. I can't tell if he actually went to law school. I'm assuming he did really go to law school, which platformed his jump into the FBI.
Possibly.
But that's his cover story. I think he's not lying when he tells surfers, "Oh yeah, I went to law school, man." Rah. And
and my name is Johnny Utah.
yeah, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember watching you in the national championship." So like, that part's crazy. They have a beach football scene where I found out Keanu's left-handed, which there are no left-handed quarterbacks. There's like 2 or 3 that I can name. Actually more than that. But anyway, there are very few of them. And it's all shot in like, it's edited, basically. We just watch a single shot of him throw the ball, and then it cuts to someone catching a ball. Like, I don't know how much real football they were playing, but it's like Top Gun, where it's on the beach.
I was thinking Top Gun.
It's or like Top Gun Maverick, where they played 2-way Magic Hour Aviator football.
It's edited rather than directed.
Yeah.
In the same way that most Fast and Furious chase scenes are edited rather than directed.
Yeah, and it's on the beach at night, lit by the cars in the background. But like, it's still fun. Like, it's cool to watch that bonding, because how it ends is he tackles Patrick Swayze as Bodie. He's sort of the leader of this surf crew that he's hanging out with. And he tackles him into the crashing waves, and it's really good foreshadowing. Like, they did a good job of scoping out, like, when do we need to go shoot so that we could get like really good shots of angry waves and represent conflict visually. But pretty much they find this one group of criminal surfers because they try to beat up Keanu, but him and Patrick Swayze roadhouse them. And by the way, Patrick Swayze has a really weird goatee. I don't know why he has the goatee. Maybe it's to make him more Charles Manson-y or something. But it turns out those are not the droids they're looking for. They're looking for Patrick Swayze. It turns out he is the guy in the Ronald Reagan mask. And in a pursuit, so he and Keanu and Gary Busey go to stake out a bank. Which Keanu had followed Patrick Swayze and his crew around, so that they go to the bank, and Gary Busey's laughing at Calvin and Hobbes and ADR, and he says, "Hey, I need you to go get me 2 meatball sandwiches." And so they miss the ex-president robbers running into the bank, but then there's an extensive chase scene where Keanu is chasing the Ronald Reagan mask. Ronald Reagan, there's a sequence where they pull into a gas station to switch cars, and he sets their old car on fire by holding up the gas pump and spraying it everywhere with a lighter to make a flamethrower, which is awesome.
It's not the best way to hide a car, though. The best way to hide a car, well, at least now, the best way to hide a car is to park it in a long-stay car park of an airport. You light a car on fire, people will report that there's a car on fire, and they'll track you down again in a couple of hours. You park in a long-stay car park, people aren't going to find that for a week or 2 at least.
But when they find it, they'll get DNA off of it, which, I mean, that's kind of the downfall, is they're doing hair follicle sequencing to figure out what's in the hair. And analyzing the sweat that they leave in the cars. Like
Sorry, I was going to say, I think we need to emphasize that this is one of the this whole sequence is one of the best foot chases in cinema. You know, it's like it's just so good,
So
just
good.
so well shot and so
Yeah.
exhilarating. You know,
and it's got the raw emotion between the two characters just throughout. Where the final bit of it is Keanu. He's not wearing a mask. He's just out running around like a dum-dum, blowing his cover, and they stare into each other's eyes through the Ronald Reagan mask. That's the moment where you realize, oh, that is Patrick Swayze under there. That their connection is evident. And so the second half of the movie then is Patrick Swayze knows that Keanu is an FBI agent, so he has to trick him into sort of joining their surf crew so that they could save a woman named Tyler, who they are both sexually involved with, or had been in Swayze's case. They need to save her, and so that's their sort of mutual goal that drives them to do one last bank robbery before the ex-presidents get away. And the really cool thing about Bodhi is he's not just a bank robber. He's like an existential bank robber who's all about like really living and not being like those idiots who drive around in metal boxes and go to their stupid day jobs, and he's rebelling against the system and against the absurdity of life and just really living his truth, living the way he wants to live. And that is easily the most compelling part of his character, because otherwise then he's just dumb action villain. But you alluded to it earlier. Tarantino has a similar monologue about Top Gun that he gives, where it's all about them being gay. I mean, that is what this movie's about. It's about them being gay. But specifically, we're going to go back to Christina Lane here. I propose that Bigelow's film, this is more general, they rely on complex relationship between genre and gender, often blending genres or reversing generic expectations, and they are best understood in the context of her independent origins. And so specifically for Point Break, she says, the film's tension between civilized order and nature calls gender ideologies into question by posting two versions of the male action hero. How are gender categories innate? Are they performed? How does gender performativity destabilize the related power structure? And so a couple of the ways I picked up on that is at the end, Keanu has longer hair than he has at the beginning. He and Patrick Swayze are both defining. Kieran, you have long hair. Are you purposefully denying gender norms with your appearance?
I would argue that there are stories like Samson in the Bible that long hair gives you strength.
That's true. And when you get rid of that, then you lose all of your power. So
indeed.
They also have, the male intimacy, like when they are skydiving, and Keanu does not have a parachute. Protection? I don't know. Is it a metaphor? Is it not? I couldn't tell you. But they are falling with Keanu wrapped around Patrick Swayze, telling him to pull the parachute so that they could be safe, while holding the phallic object of a gun to his head, and saying, pull it. And Patrick Swayze saying, nope, you're gonna have to shoot me if you want me to pull this, or you're gonna have to let go. Then you're gonna fall. There's a dilemma put in this very homoerotically staged scene that's happening. And another aspect of the homoeroticism, how does Keanu recognize that these fellows might be the ex-presidents? Well, one of them pulls down his pants to expose his buttocks in a bank robbery camera from the bank that they look at, CCTV, and he recognizes it when the guy pulls his pants down again, and he sees the tan line and he sees his butt. And so that's the way Keanu knows these might be the guys. And there's a lot of, I mean, absolutely purposeful changing of, like, you know, the traditional romantic hierarchies of action films, which are usually about there's a lady and there's a big manly man and he's saving her, and you know, maybe she'll do a couple of, like in Indiana Jones, like she isn't fully a helpless
Which
dum-dum.
one? You're going to have to be specific, because Indiana Jones 2, Temple of Doom, there's not a lot good that Willie does.
Look, they've all come out by this point. There are action films where women are more than just helpless idiots that need to be saved.
Blue Steel.
Yes, like Blue Steel. But in this movie, the woman is just completely shunted to the side. And when that's a film made by a female director, like, you have to assume that there's some sort of intentionality, because she does recognize the, you know, sort of gender dynamics of previous genres, and surely would have been studying that stuff at Columbia in the 70s. Lane's final argument, or she says, my argument here is not to elevate Kieran, Point Break, as a progressive film, but rather to suggest that, yet again, Bigelow addresses discourses of power, specifically gender politics, by exploiting generic... would we say... Is it generic or generic in this context? I don't know.
I'd still say generic.
Yeah. I almost blur the two and say Jean-Eric, but that makes it sound like a name.
Genre tensions. She rewrites the ideological tensions of sameness and difference in law and nature by implicitly critiquing the very values of the Reagan era, which fostered the success of the action genre. I mean, she talks about that scene where he's spraying the car with gas and fire as, like, you know, it's not a didactic, you know, what's the word, metaphor for the Reagan era, but it does end up being that incidentally. And I think that another aspect of this is she talks about Keanu sort of conforming better to performed masculinity over the course of the film, which is why he triumphs and why Patrick Swayze dies. But both of their symbols of power, the Reagan mask and Keanu's badge, are cast into the ocean at the end of the film. And, you know, it's interesting to see that, like, Keanu has sort of been won over by Swayze's ideology, and he may not buy into, you know, he's not going to go rob banks and he's not going to harm people, but he does see the violence inherent in the system, so to speak, and loses his that aspect of himself as he exits towards the camera.
It's a very interesting film, and just to go back to, hilarious enough, I'm still coming back to this interview from 1992. Is it this one? Yeah. There was a question: do you get a lot of feedback that you, as a female director, were shooting a macho action movie? And apparently, Bigelow said, I had people saying that the audience would never know this was written and directed by a woman. Which is what you're saying about the female character being shunted to the side. It's like, oh, obviously a man's done this, because you don't want to focus on the female characters. You have to focus on the men.
I mean, I just kind of think it's interesting that she shunts that kind of a female character off to one side. You know, basically it's like traditional place you'd put a woman in a film like this. I'm not interested in representing that, so pay vague lip service to it. But after she's done everything she's required to do, I'm not interested anymore. You know, where she'll put so much more focus on, you know, a woman in a traditionally male role. You know, you think of Jamie Lee Curtis in Blue Steel, or you think of Jessica Chastain in Zero Dark 30. You know,
which I think actually does her as a director and a writer due service, because we're not focusing on a specific kind of genders just because we feel we need to. We are focusing on what is interesting to the story. You know. And interesting characters, you know, whatever gender they are, you know, or, you know, just So it's like if a story is
deconstructing like patriarchal society and
Yeah.
male gender roles, like that's not something inherent to like more masculine ideologies for sure.
Yeah. And if your story is about kind of men and kind of how their attitudes
gay
and things
men.
like that, especially like in the nicest way, that's going to be your focus, and it is okay to focus mainly on kind of male characters if your focus is on these. Like some about 10 years ago, they reckoned they were going to reboot do a movie version of Lord of the Flies with all females, and it's like, but the entire point.
Leslie Jones.
The entire point was that Lord of the Flies is about how young boys were raised, specifically young boys. Doing it with girls. This is not just like, oh, there's no girls in here, how awful a book it is. No, that's not the point of the entire thing.
We're going to rename Napoleon
of
Theresa
Flies,
May in Animal Farm.
The whole point of Lord of the Flies is like, you know, put a group of men or boys in like close proximity for, you know, any amount of time, and things will go to pot. You know, I think women would be too mature for that.
So the fact that she is focused on kind of like Jamie Lee Curtis's character in the film, like 2 years before it, and now goes to Point Break where it's focused on the relationship with two male characters, even if the female character is shoved to the side, the fact that you have films focusing on female characters shows that it's like, it's not just, oh, I'm going to pay, you know, the exact amount of thing to females because that's what I feel I need. It's like, no, if the story is about the two male characters, that's what I'm going to focus on. And if it happens to be that the female characters are shoved to the side, unfortunately that's the cost I'm going to have to pay for doing so.
The female like Tyler, the primary female character, also gets harmed by the masculine structure of the story that she is taking place in. But there's also, I messaged y'all about this, there's a scene where a naked lady, which in any other movie is like, you know, it's male gaze sort of stuff. There's a scene where Tyler is taking off her bathing suit under a towel, and it's like so specifically shot in a non-male gazy way. And when the woman in the shower like finally comes into the scene rather than just being a nude silhouette, it doesn't focus on her body, and she beats Keanu up. She slams him into a mirror and like punches him and stuff, and then she just kind of leaves the movie. But there's a character named Rosie too, who's a male character, and the female character's name is Tyler, but we're saying we need to go get Rosie, which sounds like we need to go get the woman. Like there's interesting, you know, codified switches when you're looking at it from like a semiotic perspective, and like ultimately, this is a homoerotic movie. It's very gay. It's about Keanu and Patrick Swayze finding each other and connecting and wanting something more and deeper despite their opposition to each other in terms of Law and Order. So
it is a very good movie. One final thing from the same interview. The same interview is talking about how this is the first film with Patrick Swayze for post Ghost. And it says, further expanded her clout as an action director who, of course, happens to be a woman and is married to another master of the genre, James Cameron. And then Bigelow says, it's funny, she says, nobody approaches Walter Hill and says, Walter, because you're a man, how do you make such and such a movie? Which I think if I ever get to like a point where I'm interviewing lots of male directors, I will just constantly ask them why they made this film as a man. Just every time I can bring up the fact they are male, so this must have influenced their choice of like film. And if they happen to do a romance film, it's go, isn't this a bit soft for a male director? Like, why would you do this? And wait just for the barrage of just like hatred to come my way, not realizing it's sarcasm.
Gosh, I forgot my other point, but what one sort of, oh, well, by the way, Ridley Scott was considered to direct this, so
I do think he must be a massive influence on her, because I just think there's very, very clear line, I think there.
I mean, Point Break, it is awesome. I should have opened it with "I'm Jacob and I am an FBI agent," which is my favorite line delivery from Keanu in this movie. And I forgot whatever my other point was. I'm going to stall.
you got to watch this purely so that you can fire your gun up in the air and go "R."
Yeah, which we do
In a
here in
full
Texas.
Hot Fuzz style. Yeah, Point Break is great.
Yeah.
I think on my rankings I put it third in my Bigelow rankings.
Probably about right. Yeah.
Yeah, Near Dark I put second.
I can't think of the last point I wanted to make, so
I'm
whatever.
sure if you
I
think
guess
of
we're
it,
done.
you'll bring it in later. Yeah. Sam, should people go watch Point Break, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, just checking sure. Yeah. And then
and by the way, if no one's seen if anyone's seen hasn't seen the remake from a few years ago, don't. It's like
they remade Point Break.
Everything this film does right, it just takes everything that was interesting out of it out. Basically, it's just so it's like grey paste in film form. It's just so pointless. I've blanked most of it from my memory, but I seem to remember they focus more on the skydiving than on the surfing in the remake version.
What? But the whole point is the surfing. That's just
yeah. Skydive's like the primary sport involved in the remake.
I'm just seeing the poster for it on Wiki, and it has the most awful tagline ever. Do you know what it is? Find your breaking point. No. It's funny because it's called Point Break and breaking. Hit myself in the head. Drink a bottle of wine to get over that. Anyway,
that's dumb.
Yes, it is.
I mean, look, I remembered the last point. I can't remember if I read it or if I heard it, but I do know the context of somebody talking about this was the True Detective scene where it's the tracking shot with like McConaughey or whatever that was hailed, and it was a woman talking about like masculine athletic filmmaking and like going back to the sort of gender neutral ideals. Athletic filmmaking is not masculine.
What is athletic filmmaking?
It's where the camera's moving, and it's where like it's kinetic camera work and tracking shots, and like that's not inherently masculine. Like was it originally done by men? I mean, probably, but like women can do it. And that is such a disservice to Kathryn Bigelow's kinetic filmmaking. That is anybody can say to a crane operator, do this.
I think what they say is that you're most likely to see films where 99% of the shots are moving cameras in sort of action movies and big budget movies where 99.5% of them are given to male directors. We're only now, realistically, aside from like Kathryn Bigelow, maybe one or two others, we're only just started the last 10 years to give big budget movies to female directors. And let's be honest, normally a good 80% of them are given to female directors when we can't get a male director that we want. And we've got a script that we're going to use to make it look like we're progressive and diverse. So we're going to make a female director that's done 2 movies before. We're going to give him 150 mil.
Anyway,
it's going to
let's
fail.
Not relitigate. Let's not relitigate this. We've covered.
We'll always relitigate this.
But then, quite an extent.
On the flip side, then are motionless shots, are those feminine? No,
obviously.
Because men invented those too, probably. So filmmaking is inherently a masculine art if we're going to, go with who started it and that kind of stuff. So
whatever women do, it is distinctly opposite to men and normally wrong, apparently. But yeah, it's a shame because after Point Break, Kathryn Bigelow actually makes what I think is her best movie, which is Strange Days, because it's full cyberpunk, almost like I'm doing a PhD in this. Hilariously enough, she was at one point attached to an adaptation of a William Gibson short story called New Rose Hotel. And why this is also ironic is because Keanu Reeves actually does star in a William Gibson adaptation after this called Johnny Mnemonic in 1995, which comes out the same year as Strange Days comes out. And that is a cyberpunk thing. It's like with like memory recording and kind of things. Ralph Fiennes in it, Angela Bassett's in it, and there's weird riots and there's plot twists and noir thriller, and it goes off on one, and nobody saw it, which is a shame because it's absolutely amazing and I love it.
Kieran, speaking of people saw it, Point Break came out the week after T2, and so T2 outgrossed it in its second week. The Point Break made like 8 million, and I don't know how much Terminator 2 made, but it was her versus Cameron, and Well,
Yeah.
patriarchy
Yeah.
won that round.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Terminator 2 quickly became the biggest film of all time at that point, and Point Break didn't. So there you go.
But it was awesome. So shout out
It
to
was awesome.
James Cameron and Kathryn Bigelow for being great colleagues and work partners and
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
great action movies. And we
We'll
should be done talking about James Cameron at this point, I think.
Yeah. We're
They
not
got
going to be.
divorced the year after or whatever.
Yeah, we'll point out that Strange Days gave Bigelow the first woman to win Best Director at the Saturn Awards, with Bassett winning Best Actress. So did actually do some stuff. I'm fairly sure Strange Days was named after a Doors song, which hilariously enough, Point Break was almost going to be named Riders on the Storm. After the Doors song, and then they decided this actually doesn't fit into the film in any way, so let's not call it this.
Swayze does look like Jim Morrison with the goatee in that movie.
This is true. So after she does Strange Days, and it's an absolute bomb, which is an absolute shame. I don't know what came out the same week. 95, probably some big stuff. Like, yeah, 95. I'll have to double check at some point. But yeah, people quite liked it, but never saw it. So she takes a couple of years off. She tries to get. She then goes and does Wet Water, which nobody saw, thank God. She does K-19 Widowmaker, which I think, as we've said, opened the same week as, or around the same time as Spider-Man and Men in Black 2, 3. I can't remember which one it was. And even she's like, I don't know why they put it there. It's not a summer movie. I would have no way put it there. And it's almost like they were trying to kill the film off before it had a chance to do anything. It's insane. And she's like, yeah, nobody wanted to talk to me when I did that movie because nobody cared for it. Harrison Ford, amazingly enough, considers it one of the best films he's ever done. And it is a very good film. It's only down at number 7 on my rankings because I had the other films to rank as well. It is a very accomplished film. Especially, interestingly enough, it's an American director putting mainly American cast with Liam Neeson into a Soviet 1960s submarine, and they are playing Soviet characters essentially with they essentially got a nuclear reactor that's about to go into meltdown and them having to sacrifice themselves in order to stop World War III. So it's pointing the Soviets in 1960s in a very positive light, and for an American filmmaker to do this is a very interesting. Maybe that's why they decided to shove it right, in blockbuster season and just tank it. But yeah, so for about 6-7 years, she just goes completely off the radar trying to make this. So she comes up with a rough idea in sort of 2004 for having a film set in the Middle East. Please bear in mind, obviously, just before Widowmaker comes out, the year before, we have 9/11, which I think will be regarded as one of the most major turning points in world history in the last few centuries. I think in the last few centuries, I think probably it has been Origin of Species, but I think 9/11 will be up there along with World Wars. But she's doing this thing. She meets up with the guy who writes. Obviously, I now can't remember the guy who writes Hurt Locker's name, as I'll look in a second. That's the one. I knew it was something along those lines. I just couldn't remember what it was.
Mark Bull, because I said that on mute, just so Kieran would hear it.
Yeah, Mark Bull. So he had been out doing some reporting in the Middle East, comes back. Somehow they get in touch. I think he's released a couple of articles and they start developing the idea. So they're kind of getting the funding together. They're sort of writing it and working on it in sort of 2005, 2006. They're getting the funding together. 2007, they're filming it and it gets released in 2008. So it's a long process. And I look at this now and go, it was a long process now. It's somehow still a long process for her to get films made now when she's massive Oscar winner, pretty much anybody in Hollywood. Somebody gets a call, you're a big name star, and goes, yeah, Kathryn Bigelow wants you. Realistically, you're going, I will find the time, but at this point it's taking her years and years to do it, and yet there are absolute hacks out there who literally will churn out absolute awful garbage in 20 days and get paid 3 times the amount and walk off to the sunset. It's an absolute criminal offense. But she goes and makes this film about bomb squads essentially in Iraq working at the time. Hilariously enough, she chose to shoot it in the Middle East. So there's again in this collection of interviews, I will find it in a minute. But they're like, why did you actually choose to shoot it sort of over there? Could you not have done it in sort of California? Would that not have been easier? And she goes, you try getting a studio to say, yeah, we want to put a studio right in the middle of like a desert somewhere, Arizona, California. It's not going to happen, And when we went to the Middle East, and they actually shot it in Jordan, so they didn't shoot it in Iraq for probably obvious reasons. They shot it in Jordan.
I think this is from the Columbia Magazine article called "Shoot
Possibly.
Shoot Bang Bang." They said that they were going to shoot in Morocco, but like it looked nothing like Iraq, and they couldn't shoot in Baghdad, and so they went to Jordan. And
I think Jordan's the usual stand-in for that bit of the Middle East, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Well, again, they were going to go Morocco, and as I've said, many times before, you want to shoot somewhere that looks hot and vaguely exotic. You essentially shoot it in Marrakesh because they've set it up like that. But they went over there and went, the trouble is, it is Northern Africa, and she goes, you go and shoot there. Everyone there looks like they're from Northern Africa. They don't look like they're from the Middle East. Whereas in Jordan, it's not as hot as some of the other places. So it's like 115 degrees Fahrenheit rather than like 135 in other places they could have shot. And also after the Iraq War, apparently a lot of people that were displaced from there ended up in Jordan. So
what do you mean? Like after the start of it?
I mean, most of it. Let's be honest, it's halfway through at this point. If we consider the main sort of,
it went on till like 2018. I don't remember exactly when, but
yeah, we're over halfway before to Bin Laden at least, But most of the people, a lot of the people that got displaced from Iraq ended up in Jordan. So she was like, when we were filming there, there wasn't a massive film structure there, but we were able to get, people in the background that were from Iraq. They were speaking Iraqi, so all the kind of the actors that were there playing Iraqi characters, they were there. They knew the language. We didn't have to try and find people, because they're all from there. They were professional actors, maybe in the kind of the Iraqi film industry that had been displaced and ended up there. So it's like it all worked out very well for us. And I think the interesting thing about Hurt Locker, other than the fact it was kind of, you'd done Point Break, and then you'd done like 3 films that like pretty much nobody has seen, and it's like 17 years later, suddenly this film goes and just destroys everything, literally, she becomes the first ever woman to win Best Director at the Oscars and the 82nd Oscars. Hooray, we're so progressive.
The Saturn Awards had it in the 90s, all right?
Yeah, the Oscars are behind on the times, It's the first film by a female director to win Best Picture. It gets a couple of other things as well. She completely breaks the ground here, and a lot of it is the context going on the time. What I think is interesting about this is that, we were saying kind of over the past few days when we've been rewatching this or watching it for the first time. But Jacob, were you rewatching this or watching it for the first time?
So I had never seen it, and then on top of that, I always confused it with Black Hawk Down, and I think Jarhead, and I confused Zero Dark 30 with 13 Days from Michael Bay. So.
Yeah. Please also bear in mind, hilariously enough, that this comes out the same year as another film that we'd done, Body of Lies, the Ridley Scott film.
Also shot in Jordan.
Also shot there, yeah. There must have been like one comes out and the other lot comes in. It's like, oh, we've got another one. Oh, Iraqis are the terrorists again. All the Iraqi guys are like, what's going on here?
Maybe those two and he who I've stopped naming in this episode, they like collude on, we're going to release our films around the same time.
I was going to say, yeah, I wonder what happened at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Strange that. Yeah, so
I mean,
it is...
generally you kind of remember. Yeah, so I've seen this a couple of times, but not for years. I didn't really watch it, so didn't get around to it. But generally, it's like you remember the opening scene, don't you? Remember the first, diffusing scene. And for me, the other scene I remember is her reunion with Ray Fiennes. Is Ray Fiennes' scene, with the sniper rifle. It's
yeah. And then you remember bits of the others. Yeah.
That was Ray Fiennes. I was really not sure, but I
Yes.
thought it
Yeah.
was.
Yes, it was very fine. It's obviously the reuniting since Strange Days over a decade earlier. It does
That
have a
lets
thing of
everyone know
bringing people back in occasionally. Yeah.
you guys are complicit in these Middle East wars too. It's not just America.
I
All
never
right.
said it was just America. It's mostly America.
Look, I'm just trying to absolve myself of some of the.
We have whole Doctor Who episodes as allegory for the Iraq War. Don't worry, we're aware of this.
Which prince went to Afghanistan? Was it Harry or William?
Harry, yeah.
Nice. Are you allowed to criticize that, or will you get arrested?
He's not a member of the royal family now, is he? So it's fine.
Perfect.
Although William was in the RAF.
Yeah, we can criticise royals, we just can't really criticise our government's policies at the minute.
It has to be based in fact.
Yeah. So yeah. It's literally kind of a life in kind of almost like the tour of duty of Jeremy Renner's character. Whose names I've obviously forgotten, having watched this yesterday. I can't remember any of their names. James.
And Sanborn is Falcon.
Anthony Mackie. Yeah. So again, two of the Avengers are in this movie. Although
the side characters.
Yeah, has Guy Pearce been in a Marvel movie?
Hawkeye's not a side character.
Has Guy Pearce been in a Marvel movie? Yes, he was in Iron Man 3. So we've got. This is the point where everyone just ends up in Marvel.
And Evangeline Lilly is his wife, isn't she? So yeah, so not another Avenger.
Yeah. Welcome to the Avengers before the Avengers.
Character.
Yeah. And it's kind of a rotation tour of duty, going out and kind of disposing bombs.
It's a slice of life war film.
Yeah, well, the thing is, she spoke about this in some of the interviews, which I obviously now can't find the specific interviews, because that would obviously be far too easy for me to find after having read them.
Kieran uses physical books, and he can't control F.
Well, no. For this one, I am using it online, but I can't work out what exactly I need to search in order to find exactly what I need to find. But she was saying sort of that to put it as a kind of a more kind of rigid structure, or more Hollywood structure, would go against the ethos of what she was trying to do. It's trying to be the word she keeps using, I think, in like 2 or 3 interviews, is reportorial, or so it's reporting. Very almost. I was watching. I think it's almost like a faux documentary, not a mockumentary, but fake documentary style. So it's very handheld. It's very kind of point and shoot.
360.
Yeah, you very much get that feeling for even more so as Zero Dark 30, don't you? It's,
there's
it's pseudo documentary style verite,
I mean, somebody even made a comment, I can't remember where it was, that it might have been almost video game like. You see kind of the POVs through kind of sniper rifles and stuff like that. Obviously, this is the time when the video game kind of first-person shooters are starting to really come in.
They play, it's third person, but they play Gears of War in the movie. One of the soldiers is playing it in their downtime.
So, and, so to keep it this kind of just a slice of, this is what the guys that we send out there are actually doing, to give it more of a kind of plot structure and a kind of Joseph Campbell sort of hero with 1,000 faces and hero's journey kind of thing, to her would have kind of gone against the feeling of it. There's bits, so for example, obviously when he goes back right at the end, he sort of has to come back again because he's lost that feeling, and she's like, I don't want to give it a structure because that then takes it into plot. I want to bring it with the characters and have a sort of like 2 hours just living life with them, and she was saying, you've got these people that are right down on the ground, millimeters away from essentially putting a massive crater in the ground and clearing hundreds of meters around them and killing loads of people. You don't need much more to create the tension. She was like, I didn't have to come up with stuff. I just go, here's your scenario, go for it, and the rest does itself.
By the way, on like that ending part, that's what makes me want to go rewatch it, because I was underwhelmed, And then the ending, I was like, oh, okay, I need to rewatch this movie for sure.
Yeah, and she keeps saying things. She said stuff like, war for some people does give them a sense of purpose. It sounds awful, but it does work for some people. It gives them something to do. It gives them something to feel like they are accomplishing something.
Or a
They
high
are
in a
saving lives.
rush, like the beginning
Yeah.
says.
Yeah, and obviously they say the war is like a drug, and she's talking about these kind of bomb disposal guys, and they're like, they're massively high IQ, but they're also, because of this, there's a recklessness in them that you have to have a kind of hubris to think, I am going to make it out of this no matter what I do, because otherwise you'd never be able to go and do the job in the first place. There has to be kind of almost something wrong with your brain in order to put yourself in that situation and be able to do that job effectively, which is, I have seconds to live in something absolutely minutely kind of very, very fine, where the slightest tremor of my hand is going to kill dozens of people, myself included. And you have to have that confidence and a slight recklessness in order to be able to do it. And she's kind of saying, I try not to take the war into account, and I try and focus it on the characters, because a lot of this stuff, the commentary on this has been saying that it's a very, well, essentially half of the discussion about this is on the politics of it. Which way does it lean? For example, a lot of the stuff, for example, in the introductory scene, the bit with the shot that everybody knows, essentially, of the bomb going off, and it is Guy Pearce, isn't it, kind of falling sort of in front of it.
His face explodes.
The person that sets off the bomb, because they've got a remote version as well. The guy that sets it off is literally by a butcher's stall with hanging things of meat there. The symbolism could not be more clear. And most of the time, whilst they're working, it's kind of close up on the ground of the American military, or shall we say the occupying forces, because obviously Ray finds us there. Let's give Jacob his due. It's not all Americans, but it's mainly Americans. And it's all very long, shaky POV shots from high up of people watching who could all be suspected terrorists, essentially, and everyone's a threat and a danger. So from that point of view, you go, well, this is very much a pro-war movie, a very much a kind of, your politics are shaky at best. But she goes, I'm trying not to do that. Most of my story is just focused on the ground of people doing their jobs.
It's on the ground, people in a possible situation trying to make the best of it, basically, trying to do their jobs, really, whatever the reasons for that are. I mean, I think Zero Dark 30 was more rightly criticised for its potential political kind of message, because that's more explicit in that and potentially questionable. But I think this one, it's I think she is right. I think it is, it is just following these ordinary people, in this terrifying situation, try not to die, basically.
Yeah.
Kieran, you messaged us, that the politics are dodgy, and what you said earlier about how she was trying to frame it sort of apolitically, that was the impression I got from watching it, where I was trying to figure out, is there, really something at the core of this movie aside from, oh, war is hell and it sucks, and this specific war has put, these real human soldiers into a position where they are paranoid constantly. They feel that they are in a position where they have to terrorize these, mostly silent, non-English speaking people. Like there are moments where people are screaming in like Arabic or Farsi or whatever, but a lot of the scenes, like when the guy pulls up with the car, he's just silent. He doesn't say anything, and so many of these figures are ultimately just being terrorized by soldiers, which is just sort of the rational thing for the soldier. Like, I don't know how they ought to be acting if they are forced into this situation. Like, you do have to be suspicious, unfortunately. Like, I think if there are, grander politics to be read from this, it's that the situation makes soldiers do terrible things and think and behave in terrible ways because of the realities of the situation.
Yeah, and it's a kind of, we have to be behind them because they are doing something, which is incredibly brave, and for whatever reasons that, they think they are doing it for. But at the same time, there's an anti-war element of that stuff going on, and they are doing awful things and stuff like that. So it's really interesting, I think, politically. And as I said to you guys, I think it made the splash it did purely because it came out in 2008, 2009. If this was to come out now, it'd be seen as an interesting film, but probably wouldn't make the splash it did.
It's like how Apocalypse Now was like the first Vietnam film or whatever.
Yeah, if it wasn't the first to come out, it was the first big one. And again, I think that's probably the reason why it did well at the Oscars. We did Crash as well a couple of years earlier, and we all know that the Oscars love a film which touches on relevant, social commentary, and it's like only 25%.
Without making the white middle class audience feel too uncomfortable about it.
I was going to say, yeah, God forbid they do. Maybe this is why Avatar didn't win, because it was literally anti-imperialism to a T. Even if it was dressed up with space Pocahontas,
it was too woke.
Yeah, it was too woke for the Oscars somehow.
Despite being generic and not genreic.
Both. So it's interesting because Hurt Locker is it is a good film, and I mean that opening sequence, the opening 10 minutes is just like, you know me, I don't like handheld shaky cam like for too much, and this movie pretty much is. That opening sequence is so well done. It is pitched so beautifully, and when you do get the mounted kind of slow motion stuff, this is where slow motion works. Not all the time, but at a very specific moment for a specific impact, and it is just almost like, for everything else, you got to have the gonads, even for a female director, to be able to say, no, we're going to put this in slow-mo, and to make it a big epic kind of thing, which is also terrible at the same time. It's a really interesting decision, but just makes one of the most iconic images in the last 25 years of cinema, and probably will be regarded as one of the iconic moments. And let's be honest, it's the opening sequence everyone knows. The rest of the film, people know if they've gotten around to seeing it a couple of times, because you have to see it a couple of times to actually remember the plot. This is my third time seeing it, and I couldn't remember most of it.
There really isn't a plot. It's like it's a series of vignettes following characters, and like, what the one that really sticks with me is the Ralph Fiennes part, where they're having to snipe these guys, and you get the impressionistic, unfocused camera because they can't see like anything, and they're just kind of shoot 20 meters that way, you'll hit them eventually, and like there's such a mundanity and banality to the violence and being a soldier in the film, but like I love the end, and I wish there was more of it intercut where Jeremy Renner goes home and he's shopping with his wife, and he's like, "Oh, I hate my baby and wife. This sucks. I'm gonna go stop more bombs from blowing up and put myself in positions where I could very easily die because of my just insane courage, stupidity, hubris, whatever it is."
Yeah, I mean that is a bit that I must admit I've forgotten about. There is a bit of that towards the end, isn't there? And as you say, I think more digging further into that might have been quite interesting, but but that's not the film this is, though, is it? It's very much like focus on his time, his tour of duty, and the immediate kind of impact on that, on his psychologically, physically, everything else.
Just a bit I remembered very quickly. This is coming from an interview with Scott Tobias, 2009, originally appeared at avclub.com, talking about filming it with Jeremy Renner, just thinking about him going back and defusing more bombs. When they were filming it, so the place where it was like 135 degrees was Kuwait. When they shot it in Jordan, it was like 115 degrees. And apparently the most challenging aspect was putting that bomb suit on Jeremy every day. He's an extraordinarily talented actor, but you're asking him in that kind of climate to put on a piece of wardrobe. It wasn't a wardrobe, it was an actual bomb suit. So they didn't they might have done like a couple of air holes, but it was a thing that weighed between 80 and 100 pounds every day
That's crazy.
in like that kind of heat. And apparently one of her like primary kind of things was making sure he was okay, like just in terms of physical health and not like passing out and dying.
Just passed out in there.
Yeah, just ridiculous like stuff. And then you got to think like the people that are having to actually do that in the high pressure situation with just sweat pouring down your face. It's like it's an interesting film from that perspective, very much so.
That was my thought. Like, it's funny you said, "Oh, poor Jeremy Renner had to put this on a couple times," and like they're real people putting it on and going out in the 130 degree.
Yeah, and the thing is, like they're saying, sort of, they get called up for pretty much absolutely anything to go check it out, and so like these people are called out like 4 or 5 times a day. Every day for like, at least sort of a month and a half if it's like one like small rotation. If you're out there the entire time, it's like every day of the year, like 5 times a day, you're having to strap this massive thing to you in like 115, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. What's that, like 35, 40 degrees Celsius, something along those lines, and go diffuse a bomb in the middle of a road. Like, you have to be a little bit, I think, actually, no, quite a bit nuts to be able to do that job. But yeah, with the film as it is, I was saying I don't think it would have made the splash it did had it come out sort of perhaps now. And I was saying to you guys, it's a good film. Perhaps in retrospect, it's not the massive film that it was now as a film itself. But again, a lot of these films have to be judged in the context in which they are released, in the splash it makes. But I do think that sort of it made the thing now, or made the impact then. It's kind of gone on the surface now, but when we get to maybe another 15 years, so sort of 40 years on from 9/11, sort of around that time, it will become almost a historical artifact that will be studied almost in history class as as a thing. Do we think this is propaganda or not? And that kind of stuff.
Maybe not studied, but that's what a substitute teacher puts on the day that
it will come out in history classes in the way that kind of, or that maybe in some kind of university when you're looking at history, you'll look at like World War II films. This will be a key case study in kind of historical contexts and artifacts for the Iraq War, I think. And I think that will be its afterlife. And for a film to have that afterlife is impressive if on its own. The fact that it also finally broke the Oscars and got Kathryn Bigelow the win, after and has now gone on to allow sort of Chloe Zhao and Jane Campion to get theirs as well. If for nothing else, it's going to be interesting as a historical artifact. It's a good film. I think Near Dark and Point Break are better. But it is still a very good film. A bad Jane Campion movie or a not great Kathryn Bigelow movie. I'm running on fumes here, guys. A sort of under par Kathryn Bigelow movie is still an amazing movie. And it's an amazing film. And because of that Oscars win, it will be in. It sounds bad, but it will be in pub quizzes for time to come. Yeah. For the rest of time. It will be on quiz shows for the rest of time. It will be in your Trivial Pursuits for the rest of time. And it sounds bad to have this movie as literally just an answer on a quiz show. Yeah. But this is the importance of it.
One day I'll be on Jeopardy and just conflate it with Black Hawk Down and accidentally say, what is Black Hawk Down? And I will lose. So...
Yeah, who was Black Hawk Down was the thing, and you go, what film was directed by Kathryn Bigelow?
Where's Jake Gyllenhaal? Does he show up later? That's Jarhead, right? I'm so confused.
Yeah, quickly going through her others because we'll wrap this up. Zero Dark 30 is about the hunt for Osama bin Laden. That got attacked. I think it's actually a slightly better film in filmmaking terms than Hurt Locker. I preferred it, but the politics are far much more. Then again,
it made me feel a lot more uncomfortable in a political sense.
Although, to be honest, if you've got that amount of money behind a film which is about the finding and killing of Osama bin Laden, realistically, your politics are only going to lean one way. And I wonder how much of that is kind of studio pressures writing it for her, and how much if it's Bigelow's own politics. And obviously, as the director, you're the first person in the firing line if anything goes wrong from the critics. It's always your fault. So that one is a very good. It has some very good performances as well. Jessica Chastain, whose character was made up for the film. Everyone else is kind of
lots more Marvel actors in that one as well.
yeah, and then she does Detroit in 2017, which is her most recent film until House of Dynamite, which is a very uncomfortable film. It's Will Poulter being a very overtly racist cop and beating up. I think John Boyega's in it.
John Boyega, yeah, it's nice to see John Boyega in like a serious role like that. After all the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah. It is a very good. I don't remember that much about it. There's like a 30-40 minute sequence, which is like a raid on a house. It is very uncomfortable viewing, and for the right reasons, it's very uncomfortable viewing.
Well, again, confusing with 13 Hours. It has John Krasinski in it, so.
But so we steamed through most of, pretty much all of her filmography, and I'm hoping that House of Dynamite gets the impact that it does. Who's actually in? Why do I think Idris Elba's in House of Dynamite?
I mean, it's having some good early reviews, I think. Yeah,
I mean, again, we're talking about stat cast. Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Jared Harris is in it. Greta Lee, Anthony Ramos is in it. Tracy Letts, Moses Ingram's in it. Written by Noah Oppenheim, who I do know has written some stuff. I can't remember what he's written there.
It's about the nuclear threat against the states, isn't it?
Idris Elba is the president. That's great.
If only the US would have a black president. Oh well, they've done that once, but now they're just like, oh, we don't want anyone that's not a white male.
If only we had a British president, maybe that would make things better.
Right.
And again, you've already had a black president as Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, he's also God.
Right. Yes. Right, let's wrap this up and well done, Kathryn Bigelow, for giving us a very good filmography, and hopefully long may it continue.
Yeah, you know what? Yep. Good on you, Kathryn Bigelow. That is what we three guys have to say here.
Straight white guys, yeah. Please, can you pump out movies longer than like 7-8 years apart, please? Like, please, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's Kathryn Bigelow. Thank you for listening to this. We'll be back next week with something else. Until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where I don't think I've got anything new up the past couple of weeks. But this month, I am also doing 31 days of horror. So I'm watching a new to me horror film each day this month. So if you follow me, SSP Thinks Film on Blue Sky or on Letterboxd, you'll see the range of movies I'm watching, and check out my couple line reviews for each.
Yeah, hopefully you don't find me anywhere but on Cage's Mental at various places. I am also doing 31 Days of Horror. I'm a couple of days behind, just because life gets in the way. Haven't got anything new on the Blue Stack, but I will be definitely trying to get to Tron Ares and suffering through Jared Leto for the aesthetics.
Enjoy.
9 Inch Nails and the aesthetics will take it over, I'm fairly sure. Jared Leto will be, every time he comes on screen, I have to kind of gouge my eyes out.
I mean, he'll probably give a good performance.
Apparently he's silent for most of the time, which is thank God.
he's just such an insufferable and detestable human.
Yes.
But
it's really annoying when he's not that awful in like his earlier stuff in Fight Club and Requiem for a Dream. It's like, you're not awful here. It's when you get around the mid 2000s that I start to hate you completely.
I mean, he's good in Dallas Buyers Club. Like, say what you will about Jared Leto, the guy can act. But yeah, horrible person. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy, where I'm not gonna go watch Jared Leto's movie. I wrote about the Paul Thomas Anderson movie, but I'm finishing up final exams for my first half of this section of school. So
good luck.
Yeah, I haven't written anything, but as soon as that ends, maybe I'll write a couple of things.
Write it based on whatever you're doing your exams on.
Well, unfortunately, I'm taking an environmental ethics class, so I need to like watch, I don't know, Day After Tomorrow or something, and then
No, do the
Terrence
awful
Malick.
Steven Seagal movie again.
Ooh, actually, Kieran, that is genius. But what one of
Pair
the
it with the fire down below, whatever it is. The other one.
we did an exam where the last question was for extra credit, write your own question and answer it. And so I wrote, what would various environmental philosophers think of the 7 commandments at Animal Farm? And I was like, well, Peter Singer, I mean, he's probably pro all animals are equal, but I don't think there's utilitarian value to them not wearing clothes. So
Anyway, this is an entirely different episode. We should get off the airwaves.
yes, thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Adios.
Good.